Okay, in our last session, we contemplated on Naham Prakashaha. So our Prakash sir wasn't there in our last session. So we could discuss about Naham Prakashaha. So this time it is Vedaham Samatitani. May I request Prakash ji to help us chant this and also to go into the word by word meaning and the brief meaning. And then we'll open it up for views. Prakash ji, are you there?
Yeah, I'm definitely there. Somebody should help me with the tune.
Okay. So who likes to volunteer to help with the tune? Kamatji, Saravananji, Shubhaji. Anybody wants to help with the recalling the tune? So the trick I usually follow, Prakash ji, is Dharma Kshetre Kurukshetre. Dharma Kshetre Kurukshetre Samaveta Yuyutsavaha Mamakaha Pandavaschaiva Kimakurvata Sanjaya. That's usually how I go back.
Vedaham samatitani vartamanani charjuna bhavishyani cha bhutani matu vedana kaschana.
Mam tu vedana kaschana.
Mam tu vedana kaschana.
Excellent. Yeah, can we please repeat again?
Vedaham samatitani vartamanani charjuna bhavishyani cha bhutani mam tu vedana kaschana.
Very nice. Can you please read the word by word meaning?
Veda, to know. Aham, aham is I. Samatitani, the past. Vartamanani, that is the present. Cha is and. Arjuna is, O Arjuna. Bhavishyani is the future. Cha is again and. Bhutani are the beings. Mam is me. Tu is verily. Veda, to know. Na is to not. Kashana is anyone. O Arjuna, as a supreme personality of Godhead, I know everything that has happened in the past, all that is happening in the present, and all things that are yet to come. I also know all living entities, but me, no one knows.
Very nice. Thank you very much, Prakash ji.
Thank you.
So this is what Krishna is saying. That Krishna is a Trikala Jnani. So what is Krishna's indication here to us?
Sorry, what's the question?
What is Krishna's indication to us? Krishna is saying he is Trikala Jnani.
Yeah, it's the self, right?
Yeah.
It's the conscious. I mean, it's like, yeah, it's not Krishna as God, but he says he himself doesn't know him. Like,
so he says, I know everything that happened in the past, happening now, and in the future.
yeah.
No one knows me. Correct. You are on the, the one of the way to look at it is as consciousness. Krishna here is not speaking as a person, but as a consciousness.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what I heard, and this is what I understand. I mean, even what I heard was that when Krishna says me, it's not really he as per se, but he says the supreme, the understand.
Yeah. That's right. So what does this shloka then really mean? Does it mean, you know, some kind of a supernatural ability in him? Or what is the purport, or what is the intention of this particular shloka for me and you?
Who am I? Question.
Yeah, right. You know, if you have answered that question, you know what was your past, what is that, you know, you are in the current, and what is going to happen in future. So you are basically one with the Supreme.
Okay, excellent. So who am I question? So the intention is to point at the who am I question. Does it mean that, one has to remember the past and one becomes all kind of, sayer of the future? Is it talking about some kind of siddhi? People say, go to an enlightened master and ask about your future. He or she will know everything. Is that what is also meant here? Is it talking about some kind of a siddhi or something that, you get as a power in the mind, that, you're able to see the future and you're able to forecast the future?
It's not the forecasting in the future. It is our own self which has the past, present, and future.
Meaning what?
Meaning, in this life itself, not about some. I don't know how to put it.
So that
There is no.
Yeah, go. Yeah, Shubhaji, you please complete, and then Saranji will speak. Yeah.
No, yeah, Sarananji can say. Maybe I'll come back with the correct word.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
the concept of time itself is on the consciousness. So that way, the one that holds that time is the consciousness, is the Brahman, right? Which is what Krishna is saying. So he's beyond the time.
Excellent. So where is
Right.
time really? Where is time really? What brings the concept of time in? Is there something really called as time? How do you make up time? When do you say time has passed?
Because there is a concept of event, something that has happened. So if you hold on to that, then the concept comes when it started and when it is going to end or when it has ended.
Excellent.
This time comes because there is a change that you see.
And in order to notice the change, you compare.
Yeah.
There is one memory in the mind, and now something is happening. You compare to that memory. So essentially, time is what? Comparison of two memory events. So the concept of time gets created because there is a comparison. Oh, I see this photo. Oh, this is me when I was young. I remember, how nicely, the world used to be when I was very young. People used to love each other. Now look at it. So there is a comparison.
That is when it becomes past, present, and future.
So time is nothing but two memory events in the mind getting compared. Oh, this happened, and now this is happening, and this is going to happen. So, for example, I put some seed. Oh, the flower is going to come. Which flower? Rose flower is going to come. So I also become a sayer of the future. So this is the way the time gets created. Again, through the memory part of the mind. So when Krishna is saying here that I know, meaning what? Krishna is, like you already said, is indicating to the knower. Who is the knower? Who is the true knower here? Who is saying that, oh, this is my photo? Who is saying that right now this is happening. Who knows by my current action what is the likely outcome? Who knows? So the knower is being pointed at. Not only that, Krishna is also pointing at, I know all living entities. Why is that statement being made?
That is, that's where it takes to the oneness, right? So without that statement, then like there can be multiple um, uh, God or like the Supreme, right? So he's making it very clear.
Excellent. Otherwise, then okay, there is somebody else in this form who knows, and somebody else in this form who knows. So there is a dichotomy that you would bring. So again, Krishna is pointing to how Krishna is beyond time and space. So because the form is the representation of the space, and the past, present, and the future is a representation of the time. So beyond time and space, Parabrahma. So Guru Vishnu, Guru Deva, Guru Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma. So Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara, they represent the creation, maintenance, and transformation. And if you notice, creation, maintenance, transformation is happening in the time and space. For creation to occur, for maintenance to occur, for transformation to occur, there has to be time and space. So in the domain of the time and space, where is time and space? Through the domain of the mind. When the operation is through the domain of the mind, there is a time and space. And that is where creation, maintenance, and sustenance, and transformation, everything happens. But Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, these three are also Guru only. These three are also by the power of the self only. Which three? Creation, maintenance, and transformation are nothing but the powers of self only. But Guru, or that self, is Sakshat Parabrahma. Parabrahma. Para means beyond, transcendental reality. It is transcending all these three, because these three are limited. Come and go. Brahmatva, Vishnutva, Shivatva, they are all in time and space. They come and go. Because there is a certain space and time in which certain change, transformation occurs. But Guru is Sakshat Parabrahma, beyond the space and time limitations. So which means it is something that has to be all-pervading. Something that has no beginning, no end. And that cannot be known by anyone, in the sense that it is not a concept of the mind, because the mind has a certain limitations, space and time limitations. Anything that occurs in the mind is bound by that space and time limitations. So to indicate that it is beyond, and it is not a concept that you can think of, me, no one knows. And that's where, this beautiful illustration from the Mundaka, where there is a illustration of the two birds. One bird which is engaged in the worldly activities, eating the fruits of the world, enjoying. There is another bird which is silently sitting and watching. So the silently sitting and watching is the Parabrahma, is the true self. This is the pseudo self. Pseudo self in the sense, the ahankara, the aham. The aham thinks, I am the doer, I am the enjoyer. But it is happening. So to indicate to this fundamental truth, this shloka, so beyond the time and space and all pervading, and not something that can be known by the mind, because mind constantly imagines me as a separate, and then only it can imagine something else. So therefore, to again indicate that it is something that you cannot imagine in the mind. When you drop it, when you let it be, when you let the content of the mind be, what remains is that. Again, here the intention is not to describe what remains. You cannot describe anything. You can only point at that thing. So here there's a pointer. What remains after all this is kind of removed, like in the Nirvana Shatkam, neti, neti, neti. Not that, not that, not that. But what is that? There is no description for what is that. There cannot be a complete description of that. Therefore, what it is not can be described and removed. Any other views or any other pointers?
So Vijayji, can I say that like this is like a play where like the way Krishna is putting, he's like a director, and they're just going through the action, but he knows the full screenplay or how things are moving. But as we are doing, like we don't realize that we are playing, but or like and like I'm completely involved in the action, and I'm thinking like I am doing it to basically bring the next scene, but the next scene is all directed already, very clearly, precisely.
Yeah, because there's an element of thinking happening, and there's a decision process happening, and the ego gets connected to the decision process, says that I made the decision because I'm seeing the decision happening. I made the decision. So I am the karta. So this, I did it, you're not giving me the credit. So I am the now bhokta. Yeah.
And the credit now, the ego gets is the karma. Now, moment they claims the credit, okay, here you go. Okay, I give you the credit, which is the karma, which you have to either enjoy it or suffer. While
because the farm will definitely have the credit debit going on. That accounting has to happen. Every farm has a beginning and an end and a continuous transformation. And the reason for transformation is its own action-reaction cycle, its own karma. So the farm will have to go through all of it. There is no escape to the farm. But getting bound to the farm as me is where the karma is binding me. So realization that the farm is not me is the liberation. Doesn't mean that the farm has got suddenly, away from all the karma that it has to go through. So whatever has to come through to the farm will come.
Hari Om, Ashwini here.
Hari Om, Ashwini ji. Glad to hear your voice.
No, I connected with another instrument also.
Yes.
This is working now.
Wonderful.
So I need to just add over here. I don't know how far it's correct or not. So if a person goes on the top of the hill, he's able to see the full view, what is happening in the down.
Yeah.
Or like that.
Yeah.
Being supreme or being at the top of the universe, the God is out of time, and he is able to watch everything that has happened, that is happening, and that will happen.
Yeah.
And because of oneness, he is able to understand everything. But being at the top, nobody is able to understand the God. This is how I would like to add, means in the small sentence.
Definitely. Because the me no one knows essentially indicates to yad bhavam tad bhavati. So there was one wonderful joke I heard from one master. So we all picturize gods, in human form, right? So there is Brahma, Vishnu, they have all these ornaments and human-like features. If at all you could talk to a buffalo and ask buffalo, hey, how God is, in the buffalo's mind, definitely God is a big buffalo. So it is like, you cast that supreme in your own mind's image. So to say that casting is okay, the casting is not being condemned. But to say that the casting is the ultimate is incorrect. So through the casting, what is it is being referred to has to be seen. In that way, me no one knows, because the me here is not the seen, not the continuously changing. So to say that it is not the continuously changing, or the one with the form and the space in the space in a particular form is not the one. So to indicate to that beyond, I feel, is this statement, me no one knows. Wonderful, Ashwini ji.
Thank you.
Prakash ji, would you like to add something?
I'm still debating myself, so maybe you need to give me a little more time.
That is okay. Whatever the debating question, if you can bring up.
The same question.
No, like how Ashwini you narrated it, it's easy to narrate that way. But if you want to force fit Advaita into it, it's a bit difficult to understand. Dvaita is easy. If you want to separate God and you, then it's easy. Okay. But if you want to fit Advaita to this, then it's difficult to comprehend.
That is perfectly fine. Yad bhavam tad bhavati. So there is no force fit. It is, see, in any of these interpretations, one can have, okay, so there is a supreme reality, and I am not that supreme reality. It is like there is a Advaita Ramayana, and Hanuman was asked, Hanuman, what is your relationship to Rama? Hanuman says, when I function in the world, I'm a servant of Rama. I carry out the deeds that are directed by Rama. I'm a servant of the Rama. When I sit for meditation, when I close my eyes, when I sit for meditation, I see Rama as my bandhu in a very close proximity. I'm able to a bandhu, a very close relative. I'm able to hold, touch, feel, embrace. I feel Rama as a close bandhu. When I am deep in meditation, what is referred as samadhi, then I merge into Rama. No more I see me and Rama. There is only Rama. So when the Deha Bhava, Manobhava is there, it is better to function as the servant of the God, as servant of the Rama. Because who is feeling the separation? Who is feeling that I am separate? It is the ego. It is in the ego that there is a concept created that I did not create all this. I created, I made this paper. I know I made this. I wrote this. I know this. But all this I did not. So for that, there needs to be a higher reality. And that is the concept of the God. So in that, the relationship has to be between the me and the God. And absolutely fine. So therefore, it is, to take the same example of Ashwini ji, the standpoint in that mountain from where you stand and see the world. It is not a denial of one of the viewpoint. It is a inclusion of the viewpoint. Definitely from one of the particular point in the mountain, the vision or the scene that we see is correct. There's nothing wrong. There's no denial of it. So therefore, it is not a force fit. It is a indication. So in this scale, it can be anywhere. So therefore, it is not a debate or a, this is incorrect and that this is correct. It is more of a, they have to be synchronized. And that synchronization
I'm not
is
saying anybody's viewpoint is wrong or anything. All I am saying is what I understand. So sorry if you understood that way. I'm not saying anything is wrong here.
No, that is correct. No, because the force fit means trying to fit something where it doesn't belong, right? So therefore, it is not a force fit. It is a viewpoint from where you stand on the mountain and how you see. So therefore, none of the views are incorrect. Every view is absolutely correct, because ultimately all views lead to the same. Ramanujacharya says, do everything as a service to the divine. Every little act is a service to the divine. Now, there is no need to go beyond that particular statement. When you have faith in Ramanujacharya and in the direction Ramanujacharya is giving, that ultimately helps to dissolve the ego. Because all that is being done is dissolution of the ego. All the paths are about dissolution of the ego. Because it is the ego that stands in between all the separation. So therefore, every path, as long as it is inclusive of the other's viewpoint, is a wonderful path. Yes, Saravananji.
Yeah, so yeah, I wanted to bring from the Dvaitam point of view. Like sometimes when we hear this, I know all that things that are yet to come, right? Then like one feels like, then can I just like do I have to even do or think, or like if everything is planned and it's going to happen as is, right? So from this, like the way I see is there is only one who is living, and it's a self. But when you separate as ego and the self, then like you cannot, the ego cannot understand that. That's why I read this, like no one knows me. Me is the self. The no one is the none of the egos or jivas, right? Right. So the way I see it like that.
So therefore, the limited identification of the ego as me, and with that viewpoint interpretation, then brings, oh, I know everything. The I as in this, okay, oh, Vijay knows everything. Oh, Saravana knows everything. That is the incorrect understanding.
I think the question that usually comes is at the end of at the end, like any action that happens is happening as per the wish of Supreme, or like by the Supreme. Okay, and there is no way the ego can even move an inch of what was supposed to happen.
And
what
wish
happened is
and the wish,
perfect.
no, just to add one point, and the wish is not a random wish.
Or yeah,
for wish is a that is the wish is nothing but what you call as dharma.
The
Because it's according to very clear principles.
right? So when good things happen, it's very easy to accept. Okay, when bad things happen, then it's like, really, was that like, do you say that was the act of God? And that is where the Dvaitam comes saying like, okay, this is bad, and like he's bad, he or she's bad, and that's God. And like there is a big difference, and right, that acceptance of whatever happens was supposed to happen for a reason. That acceptance is where uh, uh, the person stands, right? Well, the to accept that the oneness slightly disappears at that point of time,
Correct.
right? How do you explain, like, yeah, so we have discussed in the past that like what is good and bad is again very subjective, and there is nothing like good and bad. But then like currently in the society we have a clear distinction of lot of good and bad things, and like being able to accept everything as the act of God for whatever reason, which uh, as long as I look from as a jiva point of view, you may not get it, right? So I think that's where uh, the oneness is getting questioned.
But there is definitely a result for an action. What I sow or what is sown has to be reaped. There is at an individual level, at a collective level. So it is not for nothing that a particular form is taken in a particular space and time, and that goes through a certain events, so-called life. So if all art, what we are experiencing collectively is kind of this is what was bound to be experienced in this form because of whatever the actions or the seeds that were sown earlier. Going back to the story of Dhritarashtra, when he asked, why did I lose all my 100 children? What did I do in this lifetime that I deserved such a punishment? So to explain that question of the mind, then the clarity has to be about, it is not just what you're seeing now. The window has to be expanded. I cannot describe this with the limited window.
But like we also say that there is no one is doing or influencing any outcome. Whatever has like happened as per the will of the Supreme, right? So even Dhritarashtra didn't do something as a he didn't do wrong to like how do we explain this action leading to the it becomes a seed for the next, right? When whatever happened through me, it was supposed to happen. Is it just that like because at that moment of time I felt like I was responsible, so that basically.
So see, don't you see, whenever I do any action with the aham bhava, that I am a limited being, I am a separate being, whenever I do that, then I have the impression left in the mind that, oh, it is my doing, it is my action, so now I need to reap the benefit. So the intention of that particular truth or that statement is to help us become kind of away from the I am the doer feeling, to help us dissolve the I am the doer feeling. So when I continue to do the actions with the I am the doer, the more I am still embroiled in the karma game of the world. So therefore, the only kind of a free choice or the free will, if you want to put it that word, is to examine and to step back and to realize how it is happening.
So only, so at the end, it's only about shift in attitude. Whatever happened has happened. It's
Yeah, there
not
is no way to correct that. Correct.
no way, right? And like there, I was in no way part of that result. Okay, and the moment I say that, I am detached from that action, and there is no karma points to that. But the moment I have a happiness or a sadness on that, then like I have to go through it. That karma points are there, and like I have to enjoy it.
So therefore, there is a wonderful short story of a judge and a thief. So the thief told the judge, judge, I didn't do it. I don't know who did it. It just happened. So the judge says, so be it, no problem. We are just going to punish this farm. Why are you crying, when I am going to lash 100 lashes at you? Why are you crying? You are not this. So the same thing is making me give you 100 lashes. So therefore, this incorrect understanding is that as necessity, we choose, oh, I am not the doer. That selective choice is a mistake. See, either take full responsibility, 100% responsibility. Okay, I am the doer, everything. Then the result, success and failure, both are due to me, 100%. No one else. I know I am thinking, no, I know I am doing 100%. Then have no doubt that, okay, some things, I don't know how it happened. What I did is the reason for my success. What I did is the reason for my failure. Take 100%. That also will put you at complete ease. Or realize that this is, there are so many things that, this mind alone has not thought of. So therefore, it is a play, and this is also part of the play. The decision making is a power in that moment for the rest of the play to happen. So different ways of realizing, but ultimately, what is the effect? Deep peace, because this is where all the jugglery is happening. No, I did something, I didn't get the credit. I did something that I got the scoldings. I did something that, all this is because of me. So this jugglery has to help you. Whatever jugglery, it doesn't matter. You choose a jugglery. Is it making you happy, healthy, peaceful? Whatever jugglery you have picked. How are you feeling? How do people around you feel with your attitude of life? Choose then whichever is appropriate and that makes most sense at that point in time for you.
Yeah. So the change in attitude is what I see, and like being able to remember that all the time.
Yeah.
Being conscious of.
Ashwini ji, you wanted to add something more? You've raised your hand.
Yes. I think there are two viewpoints in the shlokas. One is Dvaita and another is Advaita. Dvaita is for the Jivatma. The Jivatma means the one who is not realized or not liberated. And Advaita is for the one who is realized and liberated, or we can say a realized master. Like Jivatma, for Jivatma, like Ashwini, there is a separation. God is separate, since liberation has to happen. And the one, how and when one progresses in the sadhana and upgrades or go up in the sadhana, slowly the Advaita Bhava develops and then becomes one with the Paramatma. So the past, present and future are for the Jivatmas. And time is for Jivatma, but for the realized master, like Prabhuji, there is no Dvaita. He sees everyone as oneness. So when there is a viewpoint from realized master or God, there is no one is separate, and he is out of time. And because he is out of time, he is able to see past, present, and future. But for the Jivatma, there is a past, there is a future, and present and future, because he separates himself separate from the God. So like these two viewpoints are there in one shloka explained. When one Jivatma develops Advaita Bhava, it merges with the God, and then there is oneness. Like this. I mean, as the discussion happened with Sarvanaji, we have to, there should be the shift of bhava or shift of attitude or shift, one should develop Advaita Bhava. Then only the person will be able to understand the supreme reality. Till that time, when you are Jivatma, you are not able to understand or know the supreme reality.
Right. Very well said, Ashwini ji.
Mm.
Wonderful. Yeah. Because it is the ego, so the me here should not be equated to the ego self. Then it only bolsters that ego. It only becomes bigger and bigger. The pride in my own self-identity increases. All right.
Mm.
If there are no other questions or any other statements to be made, shall we conclude our today's session?
I would like to add, not regarding this shloka, but
Yeah.
regarding the Purusha Sukta.
Yeah.
I have started chanting with the first shloka,
Yeah.
but would like to understand the meaning of annotations one more time. Annotations.
Okay. So in any of the suktas, these are the four, in English, what can be called as tonal levels. Udatta, Anudatta, Swarita, and Dirgha Swarita. Are, to kind of use it in a very laymanish term, the middle, what we can call as a normal tone, lower, there's a higher, and extended higher. So taking the example of this particular Ganesha chanting, so this one, when there is an underline, it's lower. It's more like you go to the base or the the guttural sound. Then this one is extended higher. Ganana antva. So there's an extension and slightly you elaborate. So for example, this one, Ganapatigam. So you just extend once. Ganapatigam. Whereas this one, after you have gone higher, you extend it some more. Ganana antva. Gana. So the na here is normal. Gana, Gana, Ganapatigam Havamahe Kavim Kavina Mupa Mashravastamam Jeshtha Rajam Brahmanan Brahmanaspata Ana Shrunvannoti Bhisidha Sadhanam. So this is how these four tonal levels, depending upon your own voice quality. For example, typical female voice, the upper tone is very sharp, and the extended one is even sharper. And typical male voice is more bass oriented, so it may not be so sharp. So therefore, it is not about a particular voice. It is depending upon your own voice quality. But these are the four levels: lower, normal, higher, and extended. Is this clear, Ashwini ji, now?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So I have shared this deck also. You can use this deck, and you can also, I think you're working with Padmaji, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So you can share your recordings to her. Also, once when you feel comfortable, you can also share with me, or at any point of time. You can use any one of us. All are your buddies only. You can use any of the buddies.
Yes, I have shared post shloka yesterday with her.
Wonderful. Yeah. So then, you and Padmaji can continue that journey.
Yes.
All right. Then shall we conclude our today's session?
Yes.
Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayah, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet. Om Sarvesham Swastir-bhavatu, Sarvesham Shantir-bhavatu, Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu, Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Tat Sat. Thank you all. See you next Saturday morning. Till then, Hari Om. Have a wonderful week.
Hari Om.
Hari Om. Hari Om.
Hari Om.